Last week, I introduced a new genre of literature, poetry. As you saw from your readings, poetry contains many familiar elements from your reading of fiction, a narrative voice, a setting, and key themes to read for. This week's readings will talk about how poems convey meaning through both the types of language they use and how that language is presented through sounds, symbols, and the rhythm of the poem. I want to add to those elements by touching on the idea of structure, or how a poem is put together. Traditionally, poets wrote specific types of poems that followed precise rules. Shakespeare wrote sonnets, Keats wrote odes, but what does that actually mean? Essentially, it just means that these poems met specific criteria for the themes that were presented and how the poets conveyed those themes. A sonnet, for example, is a lyric poem made up of 14 lines that deal with two contrasting topics. The Shakespearean or English sonnet is made up of 3 rhyming quatrains, sets of 4 lines, and a couplet, a set of 2 lines. The Petrarchan or Italian sonnet is made up of a rhyming octave, set of 8 lines, and a sestet, set of 6 lines. Let's consider one of Shakespeare's most famous sonnets. It's on page 569 if you want to follow along. Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. Love is not love, which alters when it alteration finds, or bends with the remover to remove. Oh no, it is an ever fixed mark, that looks on tempests and is never shaken. It is the star to every wandering bark, whose worth unknown, although his height be taken. Love's not time's fool, though rosy lips and cheeks with his bending sickle's compass come. Love alters not with his brief hours and weeks, but bears it out even to the edge of doom. If this be error and upon me proved, I never writ, no nor man ever loved. Here you can see how Shakespeare's divided his poem into the 4-line quatrains and ended with the rhyming couplet, making 14 lines total. If you read carefully, you'll also see what's called the turn, where the poem shifts images from love as a star to love as a personified figure who is not time's fool. If you were paying attention last week, you'll also notice the telltale da-dum of iambic pentameter. When we talk about Shakespeare's sonnets, this is what we mean. He wrote this specific format of poetry. The elegy, a poem that focuses on death, is another type of poem that gained prominence during the Renaissance and has continued to the modern day. A ballad is also a traditional form of poetry. Unlike a sonnet, though, the ballad is not a lyric poem, but a narrative one. Ballads were originally folk songs and are marked by a clear story, simple diction, and a repetitive structure, often featuring a refrain. Langston Hughes's Ballad of the Landlord on page 437 is a more modern interpretation of this form, although ballads go well back into the medieval era. An even older form of poem is the ode. A long, usually serious poem, often in the form of address, this ode originated in ancient Greece. At this time, odes were a dramatic poem sung by the chorus between episodes in a play. You can find a more recent interpretation in your reading with Kevin Young's Ode to Pork on page 533. As we move forward in time and encounter movements like modernism and postmodernism, the style of poetry moves away from the firm rules of these traditional styles to more undisciplined forms. One that you'll see a lot among modernists like William Carlos Williams is free verse. This is simply a poem written without consistent structure, rhythm, or rhyme scheme. You can see 2 of Williams's poem on page 483. A type of poem that relies on the visual elements as well as auditory features is a concrete poem. This is a poem that uses its visual appearance to add to the poem's meaning, often by creating an image with the words of the poem. Whatever style or form of poetry, the goal is for the author to depict the world as they see it. So as you read this week, ask yourself how the world might be reflected, not just in the words of the poem, but in its structure as well. As always, you have a discussion board post and a journal entry this week. Your first writing project is also due this week. At this point, you should have completed your writing exercise to develop ideas, submitted a draft to a tutor or peer, and gotten your feedback. That leaves revision, which is more than just checking your grammar. Use this week to polish your writing and make sure it meets the standards for academic writing. Review that video if you didn't watch it the first time I posted it. To help with revising the analysis and research options, I've posted a checklist in your modules and another video to walk you through that process. Go watch that one now. And remember, this project is a big part of your final grade. Use your time wisely and ask questions early. I won't be around on the weekend to help.